this is our third. This is our third online meeting this year, including the AGM that we had in January. And as Helen just alluded to, we had our in-person earlier. In fact, in June, it's just last month that we had our in-person meeting in Wallington, which was really great because we had sort of existing members, group members, but also new sort of members that joined us. If we haven't met, I'm Marcin. I'm the chair of our local group for the Sutton Borough. Let me actually start by introducing the rest of the committee. Helen, who most of you will know. Lauren, I don't know how much of you want to show your poorly tonight. there is the hand. That's fine. We can do that. And we have also Bolu tonight, our treasurer as well, which is fantastic. As always, a warm welcome if you're local to Sutton or sort of the wider Southwest London, but also further afield. A very warm welcome to you. And as I just mentioned, during our last in-person in June, we have had a good turnout and managed to attract new members. So if you're one of those, and I can't remember, Peter, whether you are one of those or whether you actually...
No, this is the first time for me. I literally saw a leaflet at Shopfield and picked it up, and so I'm here for the first time.
Lovely. So welcome to you, a new member, Peter. Good to see that the leaflets seem to be working as well.
I don't even know what I'm a member of at the moment.
Well, the member for now you are just a guest tonight. So this is just to clarify, and we can always give a refresher. So we are part of Diabetes UK, Peter, and we are the local group for the borough of Sutton. But we are very inclusive, and so the power of online means that, if you're from further afield, you're equally warm welcome for tonight, and actually to join us as well if you find this worthwhile going forward. Look, I think, Helen, you mentioned we actually had, we were quite busy, the committee, earlier in July with our outreach locally at the Sanghelia Music and Summer Festival. We had a stand there, and actually if you're receiving our newsletters, our next newsletter will feature a little bit on that. As Helen mentioned, it was quite wet, so maybe not as successful from a turnout perspective, but we certainly had some good conversations with sort of audiences and actually other partners in the health world in Sutton. Sanghelia is important because it is, and some of you will remember the data that was made available to us. Sanghelia is essentially the sort of ground zero or the hotspot within Sutton from a diabetes perspective, relatively high numbers. And so it was important for us to be visible and present at this annual event. You might be bored to death if you join this call more frequently. I keep talking about the need for a secretary. If you want to shut me up, maybe you put yourself forward. So get in touch if you want to find out more, and maybe this is something for you. We would like to have you as a secretary. There are no skills necessarily required. If you want to learn something as well, that is perfectly fine. One positive thing about being online means that I don't have to tell you about toilets or fire exits. I hope that you know where they are. But what I will tell you is that we will record. In fact, we're recording already this meeting to ensure that others can join us as well afterwards, or consume, listen, and view this afterwards through a secure link on YouTube. So that's happening in the background. And then just finally, we want to make this as interactive as possible. And so either unmute yourself, start talking, or use the chat functionality as well, and we will sort of monitor that as well. We have a packed agenda today with our main speaker, but also we will have two brief overviews of two actually quite separate, different but current research projects that are happening here in the southeast. And so our main speaker for tonight, Kumar, welcome to you. I know you're supported by Priti as well, who we met at Chauhan-Whittingham, which is fantastic. and you'll be talking or giving a talk on nuances of insulin and exercise, which is fantastic. And in terms of sort of introductions, I'm sure you will introduce yourself, but you are, of course, a local partner for us as an diabetes obstetric dietitian here at Epsom and St. Helier, but also a research fellow at the University of Plymouth. And as I said, I'm sure you'll tell us all about it later on. Before we hand over to you, we have a brief overview from you, Hitachi. I will hand over to you to talk to us about the sort of research that you lead at the University of Canterbury. And I think you're looking for some sort of not guinea pigs, but people to join you and get involved. So over to you for that.
Thank you, and thank you for letting me sort of come into your agenda today. So my name's Hitachi, and I'm a trainee clinical psychologist in Canterbury Christchurch Uni. And as part of my training to become a psychologist, I have to complete a research project. And from my own personal experiences, I've chosen to make my research project on offering a self-compassion training to people with diabetes, so whether type 1 or type 2, and to see whether that will help with people who experience either diabetes-related distress, shame, or self-criticism. And because it's an online study and it hasn't been done before, it does mean that there's this idea of people getting straight into the intervention straight away, or being allocated to a control group. But both groups will have access to the self-compassion training. It just varies on the amount of time. But the training involves a weekly 30-minute video for 4 weeks, and it's about developing an understanding of what self-compassion means for you, how to develop a self-compassion relationship with yourself, and thinking about how to put that into practice over 4 weeks. And along with that, you do some questionnaires when you sign up after 4 weeks, and then after an additional 4 weeks when the project will theoretically end. There is a link to sign up, and I know that in the newsletter it's also been sent round once before, but it was just a real sort of push for participants because I'm recruiting up until October, and I really wanted to get like a meaningful sense of actually reaching people that this would actually make a difference for, because it's a bit hard on social media without sort of knowing and being able to talk to people. So I'm happy to put the link in the chat box and also my email, because I know that you've got a packed agenda and there might be questions that come up when you click the link as well. But it'd be great if you guys were interested. And I also wanted to acknowledge that I know that I can't pay everyone for their time, but there are 4 £25 vouchers as well in a prize draw that can be won, because I really appreciate the time that it takes and the difficulties that come up with participating in research. So that's also there as well. But thank you so much. And yeah, if anyone's got any quick questions, I'm sure I could answer, or I'm happy for people to email me as well.
Fans are accusing him of turning his back as principals.
Hitachi, thank you so much. In terms of, so just to clarify, in terms of who can or should be joining you, we're looking at type 1 and type 2, correct? And there are no constraints in terms of age, sort of windows, genders, not at all, right?
Yeah, so it would be anyone over the age of 18, so just an adult, someone who's been diagnosed for a year at least and self-managing, and people that aren't currently in psychological therapy or experiencing kind of suicidal ideation or harm. But yeah, there isn't any other like specific gender or like specific ages, so anyone who's got the means to can participate.
Excellent. Yeah, so if you want to put this into the chat once more, that would be fantastic.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments for Hitachi? That's a silent no, I think, for now. But yeah,
wishing you all the best. Wishing you all the best, Hitachi. I know how difficult it can be to recruit. So if you can forward it out to us by email as well, if there's any patient who is interested, we will forward them the information.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much. Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Abu, I see a hand. You unmute yourself.
Yeah. Just want to know, there is another service of going with Health Watch Sutton. Are you part of that or not?
No, if I can jump in. So actually, we also have Andrew MacDonald later tonight, Abu, who will be talking about the other research that I think you're just referring to, which is the local Sutton Health Watch project.
Yes, because I mean, I've looked at that one because that one deal only weighs type 1 diabetes.
That's correct.
Now I'm just talking now. I'm just heard that there's type 2 going on down there. So I want to make sure that there's 2 different entities, you know.
Absolutely. It so just happened that there is so much research going on right now in the Southeast, but it's different. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure. I don't know, Hitachi, whether you sort of staying with us. It would be great if you can and sort of be part of tonight, and there might be later questions for you as well. But I leave that, of course, to you. Without any further ado, you'll be pleased to hear I shut up and hand over to Priti and Komal. Over to you two.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Priti, would you like to introduce the talk, or do you want to have a few words before I start?
I'll just introduce myself. My name's Priti. I'm one of the diabetes specialist nurses at St Heliers Hospital. So I work with Kumar and I do outpatients mainly and antenatal as well.
Excellent. I feel more secure with Priti around. She has a lot of experience, so she'll be catching all the bouncer questions, which I can't answer. So I'm Komal. I joke as well when I'm feeling nervous, so you will hear a lot of them. Okay. I'm Komal Deepak Kumar, and I primarily work in antenatal, but I do see patients outside of pregnancy as well, because we are fairly understaffed all the time. So we all end up doing all kinds of diabetes. Yeah, so today I'm going to be speaking about insulin and exercise, and it is more relevant to people who are having type 1 diabetes. However, I will be including some information for those on MDIs and type 2s, and also those who are not on insulin therapy but are having any kind of diabetes or pre-diabetes. Exercise is still, I think, relevant, a topic to everybody. So yeah, that's a little bit about. I think I'm unable to share screen, Marcin.
I think, Lauren, if you can sort of give Komal the powers that she needs.
That's right. I got the power now.
Perfect.
Thank you. Just a minute. Let me just quickly. Okay. So I do come from a partly research background. So if you see small wordings underneath, which are research, is just to show you that I'm speaking evidence-based, but not to scare you or for bore you with a lot of stats. So I will not be delving into that unless you ask me. Yeah, so that's me. Yes, I'm sorry. I live very close to the police station. There is some background noise. So let me just start off with exercise and nutrition and diabetes. So I think it's extremely important because sometimes we can't classify insulin use in only one kind of diabetes. We start seeing an overlap in both kinds, in type 1 and in type 2. And the benefits of exercise are very similar across both populations. So yes, we do see a huge improvement in HbA1c, so much so that, you know, with our patients who exercise in a particular season, like a lot of them tend to exercise in summer, And in winter, you will see an absolutely different HbA1c profile. So we have to kind of encourage people to have something ongoing in the winter months as well. There is a huge benefit in terms of cardiac risk and reducing cardiac risk, improving, the respiratory function, and improving blood pressure, and also reducing the risk of developing cardiometabolic conditions, which are very similar. Since HbA1c improves, the head-to-toe improvement of diabetes complications starts becoming visible. Reduced retinopathy, reduced renal issues as well. And this one was very interesting. So the biggest hurdle that we notice, what makes people a bit hesitant in terms of exercise, is the fear of hypos. And it is a real thing because it depends on the kind of exercise. It has to be planned. I think taking out time for exercise itself in today's run is a big deal. Thinking about what you need to bolus before, what you need to reduce basal after, whether you need to take a snack, not need to take a snack, how many times you should test, all that kind of can make a person get a bit frustrated that, okay, let me just push it away. To an extent that the number of people I see in clinic who actually have a structured exercise less than sometimes 20, 30% for more than 2 times a week, which I think we need to encourage so that, people are a bit more equipped with the skill, and it's absolutely doable, and it will make a massive impact and difference in the way they're able to manage their diabetes. Yeah. So sometimes more than lack of knowledge, I think it's the practical nuances of it, which takes the sort of takeaway, and getting that into practice and not getting frustrated. Trial and error gets us there, and it's not necessarily getting that first calculation and just sticking to it will make a difference as well, because as fitness improves, one can notice that their sort of calculations start getting adapted as well, because your requirement for insulin reduces, your muscle mass improves, which means the glucose stores in your muscle are also better. So those sort of things start adapting, and you start seeing that huge impact of it. Obviously, it's not only solely physical. Having a person with psychological background sitting in the room, I think it would not be justice if I don't mention the impact of the improved mood that comes with exercise as well. Okay. So what is the recommendation? At least 150 minutes of accumulated activity spread across the week, and not avoiding two consecutive days without exercise. Why I wanted to mention this point is because I tend to see a lot of people who are like weekend warriors, having exercise at one end of the week, and the rest of the week there's hardly anything, especially in the working week. So trying to space it out, even if it means something as low intensity as a 30-minute brisk walk, even if that means you're parking a little bit away, if you're not always running late like myself, parking a little away and then walking. And for a person like me, walking after work when you're a bit more relaxed, and then you can fit that in. Okay, and 2 to 3 days of resistance exercise is important. I try to advise to kind of space it out on the non-consecutive days so that you give your muscle time to rest as well and recuperate. Okay. So I will be briefing about what I meant by aerobic and what I meant by resistance a little bit later. Okay, so why am I concerned about exercise in type 1 diabetes? So there are huge risks of cardiovascular problems that we are noticing in our type 1 population as well. There is higher BMI, hypertension and dyslipidemia. So we start noticing it's just not the pancreas not producing insulin, but it starts getting coupled with that insulin resistance, which is usually seen in type 2 diabetes coming alongside. Yeah. And regular physical activity starts showing an improvement, just not in the glucose readings, but overall in that metabolic change that we notice in terms of weight, hypertension, lipid profile, cardiac risk, coagulability, that is your blood clotting. All those factors start improving, and overall a person becomes a lot more fitter. And these changes can be seen rather quickly. So you don't have to do very strenuous exercise. It can be brisk walking, 30 minutes a day, 5 times a week. Even that will start showing these sort of changes massively. I work mainly in pregnancy. So for my ladies, even a 10-minute walk brings down the blood glucose reading. So that's the beauty of it. So if you are somebody who has not worked out at all, even 10-minute walk does make a difference, even if you're doing it as a routine in front of the television, starting to build up. Today it's 10 minutes, tomorrow I'm going to do 15. Having realistic goals as to what your starting point is. It's not in comparison with anybody else, but to start getting that improvement gradually and making that commitment to yourself is important. So please don't get worried about all the scientific words here, but I am just going to tell it to you in a very simple manner, okay? So what happens without diabetes? So when there is no type 1 diabetes, then with exercise, there is improvement in the way our nervous system works, improvement in the way our hormones and enzymes work. So that allows our cells to open up to glucose. So the exercise dose open up in our skeletal muscles, because every time we exercise, there are micro tears in our muscles, which allow those exercise dose to open. And then they take in the glucose and take in, if you've eaten a good protein-rich meal, take in that as well and helps build as well. So you get stronger muscles, stronger bones, and your cells are replenished. So I hear this a lot saying, okay, I'm not exercising because I am exhausted. In fact, if you are feeling exhausted, that's when your cells are starving, and you need to little bit exercise to open out those doors and take that fuel in so that you feel better. So effective fuel management works when you start to exercise, okay? Exercise increases glucose uptake 50 times, independent of how much insulin is there on board, okay? So insulin is one hormone, but there are other hormones in play, which kind of have an impact as well. The body automatically, for people without type 1 diabetes, reduces their insulin production because that is not needed. So it kind of shuts down that process in a very intelligent manner. And increased mobilization of fatty acids and glucose from the liver. So it starts taking in the fats and glucose from all the storage and utilizing so that you don't dip into a hypo. And why I mentioned this here is so that you start thinking that it's not only the added glucose from outside. I need to exercise, let me carry a snack. I need to exercise, let me carry a drink. How much are you going to exercise is the question. If it's just for 30 to 60 minutes, very efficiently, your liver glucose and your muscle glucose will take care of you. So you don't need any top-ups over there. So I see people who are just going 30 minutes to the gym carrying sports drinks. That's not required. It's an added expense and unnecessary glucose and unnecessary sort of salt going through the body. But those are things we all get lured into because they're fancy and we want to do it right. So we get into the circle of ads and people selling it to us. So here I would also like to speak about those two hormones which are produced, which I will be needing for you to have a small understanding about. That adrenaline is nothing but your hormone of fight or flight. So if there was a lion that enters into this room, even if your blood sugar is running a bit low at the moment, you immediately will get up and run. So that sort of flush of glucose comes in your body automatically. Exercise to a small extent introduces that as well, so that you are not going into a low blood sugar. Certain kinds of exercise increase that adrenaline and cortisol, or your counter-regulatory hormones, a bit more. So those are your resistance exercises, like a strength training, and also anaerobic exercises where you don't require to breathe, like a 10-second sprint. So I need you to kind of think about it. If you have type 1 diabetes and have been using continuous glucose monitoring, you must be wondering why you're spiking up with a particular exercise. So that might be it. Maybe it's an anaerobic kind, or it's a resistant kind, where you're utilizing those counter-regulatory mechanisms. It is not as complicated as sometimes we make it out to be. The simplest thing is to observe what happens during a workout, and then you start trialing and erroring. And I think that method never fails when we have patients or people with diabetes who come into clinic. We say, okay, what was happening when you worked out? What did you do? So I think looking at those trends itself is so sort of empowering to realize what works for you, rather than giving you some generic information. Though as a starting point, I will be giving you some information and formulas and things like that, so that you're better equipped to make that decision. Okay, so I've spoken this. So anaerobic and aerobic are two different modalities of exercise. Aerobic is your cardio exercise, like your treadmill, walking, your rowing, anything that utilizes, you to breathe through the exercise as well. Yeah. And even swimming sort of falls under that. The same thing when you are requiring that burst of energy, which doesn't require oxygen at that point, like your sprint or your strength training, where you need that burst of energy, but you don't actually utilize oxygen in the cycle to press out that glucose in the process. Okay, so that kind of falls under the anaerobic, and they behave differently in terms of how the blood glucose responds. Okay? So if a person's doing prolonged time of aerobic exercise, blood sugars tend to come down. Anaerobic, it tends to go upward. It's the mixed kind of exercise, which makes it a bit tricky, because depending on the order of exercise, it can have the immediate response can vary from the later response. Okay, so if a person is doing circuit training, and if they were doing cardio first and the resistance exercise after, then they tend to have a dip initially, and then they will have a spike up. Okay, if they're doing the other way around, which sometimes for some people with diabetes, I do suggest that they do the resistance training first and then they do cardio, then they would notice that they have that slight elevation. So if they did that sprint, then they pick up their blood sugars, and then they can do the cardio so that they have something sustaining through that. And then they quickly do another 10-second sprint, which kind of picks it up again. So utilizing the modalities for your benefit helps you to avoid unnecessarily taking extra carbs there if in case you're thinking about weight management. There are, of course, certain contraindications to exercise, such as having elevated ketones. So please do assess your ketone levels if in case your blood sugars are running high, or you're not well, or you've had a severe hypo, like below 2.8 in the previous 24 hours. If you've got elevated ketones, make sure you give yourself extra insulin and assess if in case that was the reason why you require it, or if you've not been having enough carbohydrates and it's linked to that, then please have a snack as well. If they were greater than 3 millimoles, then please do attend your A&E because it requires emergency assessment if in case you're developing diabetes ketoacidosis, which is a complication. Now, this is not to scare you off, but to just kind of take that precaution as well, because exercise can further intensify that situation and dehydration as well. Now, there are certain guidelines which suggest, okay, these are also falling under the contraindications, but we feel like instead of completely ruling it out, low intensity walking and what the person's able to do if in case there's prolonged high HbA1c, but the ketones are fine, and unstable retinopathy, if they're getting the support and somebody's able to walk with them, or that sort of thing. And if there are nervous issues and autonomic dysfunction, and not to carry free weights so that it doesn't fall on them. Small adjustments like that, if there's renal failure, ensuring that they're well hydrated during the workout as well, so that dehydration doesn't kick in. But a lot of these kind of situations, something as low intensity as walking should still be all right and provides more benefits than risks. So I would still encourage people to continue exercising in these situations, but do discuss with your diabetes team if you are worried. And we totally understand the fear that these kind of situations can land, and they're real. But we're here to support you, so please do come and get in touch. So when it comes to type 1 diabetes, the secret is to be proactive. But I know it's not as easy all the time, and sometimes the requirement is almost like a full-time job, and a lot of things to think about as well. But if you start having structured exercise, then you will start noticing that your basal requirements overall start reducing, and you won't have to keep adjusting every single time. You will know exactly what it would be on exercise days compared to non-exercise days, and it will start kind of flowing more organically rather than you trying very hard to get it right. Okay, so there are a lot of factors which influence on what we need to consider, like the length of the workout, the intensity of the workout. I know somebody who's had type 1 diabetes for long and is quite fit, but when that person did suddenly a marathon, then they were constantly getting it wrong in terms of how much reduction they were needing, because they were not able to estimate that. So carrying extra snacks, like carbohydrate sources, having backup hypo treatments, educating people that you are going, if in case you're managing something like a long haul, and making sure you're reducing that insulin if in case it's planned exercise. Now, if in case it's unplanned, something like those long shopping sprees, which you don't expect would happen, but you start walking and you end up walking a lot, which would show that sharp dip, would require adjustment of insulin after the exercise, of course, and also having extra carbohydrate at that point, which will support you to not develop those hypoglycemic events. Okay, carrying fluids and monitoring blood glucose is also important. For those on insulin pumps, checking in if in case the cannula is secure and not getting pushed out during the workout is important, because otherwise it can actively lead to a concern, especially if there's only quick acting insulin on board. So getting to the practical aspects, which are the adjustments needed: carbohydrates before, during, and post, and the insulin doses before and post. Okay. If in case it's a planned exercise, you can adjust the bolus in the pre-meal, that is the insulin that you take with the meal. Time can be adjusted before the exercise so that you're not having too much insulin on board. And if in case it's unplanned, then you would have to take more carbohydrate as well and check the basal afterwards. Okay, I'm not going to be repeating aspects such as the kind of exercise, because I think we've covered it to some extent. Okay, so what would you achieve and what are we trying to achieve here is to prevent the immediate and delayed hypoglycemia and prevent hyperglycemia as well. So like I said, there are certain kind of exercises which can lead to a spike in the blood sugars as well. So being aware that you kind of alternate that. If you're doing only resistance training, then have some amount of cardio so that you're not ending up with having hyperglycemia during the workout. And enhancing performance, of course, because it's not just about the cardioprotective impact and getting your blood sugars right. You're trying to achieve, and I know how gratifying it is when somebody is improving the performance. Like I was able to do 15 minutes today on my treadmill. Tomorrow, next week, I'm able to do 20 minutes. That is an achievement. And all those kind of enhanced performances and confidence starts building up once you have to get started for it to build up to that extent. Okay, I get this question a lot in clinic. Can I have low carbs? And I'm also doing workouts. So it might be helpful in terms of weight management, but please do get assessed by a dietitian as to how low carb you are following, because you do need some amount of sustained carbohydrates before, during performance sessions, and also to replenish your glycogen stores to avoid hypos later on. And on other days, having some low to moderate carbohydrates in the rest of the days, which you're not working out, should be okay, unless you are not developing, delayed onset hypoglycemia because of the extensive workout as well. So monitoring trends, listening to your body is important, and also learning from what was required, because it's not what is said on in a textbook or on some social media site, but what your body requires, you'll be able to personally assess. Okay, so it varies. Carbohydrate requirements vary depending on your workout level as well. So that's why I always say carbohydrates when you are exercising are your friends, but I'm not telling you to carb load or exclusively have a lot of carbohydrates, but not completely excluding it is a good idea, because it helps you to recover and helps you to prevent hypos as well. Utilizing slow release carbohydrate sources such as smart carbs, as we call it, things like your whole grains, lentils, things like sweet potato, all those are very slow release, and they help in replenishing without having those extensive spikes. Okay. This is a very interesting slide, and here you can see this is the amount of glycogen. Glycogen is nothing but the glucose storage in our liver and our muscles. So if a person is doing heavy duty exercise, it can still manage to prevent hypos for up to 60 minutes. Now, that being said, if they're not having a lot of insulin on board already and are not already running low. So there are those factors to take into consideration. Okay, so there is no need to over supplement carbohydrates with 30 to 40 minutes of a workout, which I think most people manage. If in case there is somebody who's an endurance athlete in the crowd, I'm happy to speak to you separately and talk through what your requirements should be. Okay, so if in case you are doing 30 minutes of workout and you are currently not having low blood sugars, it is above 5, then no need of any further supplementation of carbohydrate. Okay, if you are already having a lot of insulin on board, say you've not reduced your pre-meal bolus and your blood sugar is already running on 5, then give yourself that additional 10 to 20 grams of carbohydrate. If in case you do not understand what 10 to 20 grams of carbohydrate means and you've got type 1 diabetes, please do get in touch with your diabetes team for a carbohydrate counting session. It is important and will make a difference in how you're able to efficiently manage your diabetes. Okay. So if in case you are working out for greater than 30 minutes and doing 30 to 60 minutes, then you might need a small interval top up of 10 to 15 grams. I will be showing you some examples of what that 10 to 15 grams could look like. And in between exercise, I think getting used to having that carbohydrate is a skill as well. Slowly getting used to it and so that you're not throwing up when you're having carbohydrate, especially if it's in between a workout, takes some sort of getting used to. So in the initial stages, having something in a liquid form would be great, but I know people quickly kind of get their gut tolerance improved as well. Okay. If in case there is a low insulin condition, then 10 to 15 grams should be great, more than enough. But if a person is having a lot of insulin on board, the bolus before the meal has not been reduced, then they might need 15 to 30 grams, so a bit more carbohydrate. Having it in small bursts is better than having it in one big burst. Okay, so how so patients and people with diabetes, we looked at the CGM values, and if in case they have had one burst of carbohydrate, then it goes to a high level and then starts dipping. Whereas if they worked out for 60 minutes and have small bursts of glucose in, even if they had a lot of insulin on board, it kind of keeps a steady sort of blood sugar level immediately. And after that, obviously, we advise you to reduce your basal rates. That's your overnight insulin, which will take care of yourself to prevent that hypo in the night. Okay, so I'm not going to delve into this a bit more. I'm quickly going to move on because I am mindful of time. I tend to speak a lot, so I will quickly move on. The 10 grams of carbohydrate portion is similar to 1/3 of a bottle of sports drink, not the entire bottle. And 10 jelly beans or 3 to 4 jelly babies or some 15 grams of raisins. So it's quite easy to kind of plan out some of those carbohydrate portions to be there in your gym bag and not get spoiled as well. And that way you can quickly kind of utilize it if in case you are noticing a trend going lower. So there is a website called NDR UK where you can, it's freely available, the carbohydrate calculator for a download. You can go there and utilize this if in case you are still getting familiarized in terms of carbohydrate counting. Similar to that, it also has a calculator for insulin to carb ratios if that is needed as well, and that one is free to download as well. Okay, So I have spoken about the importance of utilizing the 10-second sprint instead of having additional carbohydrates. It helps in preventing hypos during exercise. And for delayed hypoglycemia to be reduced, because your exercise doors are open for 24 hours post-exercise. Sometimes if it's prolonged exercise, it can be open for almost 48 hours as well. So please listen to your body, and that's where, you know, the risk of having low blood sugars in the night, especially if there's late afternoon exercise, is noted, and henceforth needing to require to reduce that basal rate after. Okay, so in terms of the bolus, that's the insulin with the meal before exercise, the reduction that is needed is almost approximately, as a bracket rule, we say reduce it by 50%, because it can vary with the kind of exercise. So you can't go wrong when you're reducing it by 50% and then observing what you require to do further. And in the evening, after activity, reduce your nighttime insulin by 20%. And if in case further required and you're noticing a lower trend, even the next evening, reduce it by 10%. So these are temporary adjustments with exercise. If you're having structured exercise over time, you will start noticing that your basal will automatically follow require a reduction rather than you adjusting every single time. So glucose monitoring is another important aspect where you need to monitor 1 hour prior, 30 minutes prior, and immediately prior if possible. And during exercise, monitor every 30 minutes, and post-exercise immediately hourly after. Now, this is when you're getting started with a new routine that you need that increased sort of monitoring, not necessarily when you're having a structured sort of thing, then you can follow a pre-exercise assessment and during exercise, if in case you are noticing a trend downward or you have symptoms, then you can assess during exercise. And also then in the night before giving your basal, just give a check as to what your nighttime reading is, so that you adjust your basal accordingly. Yeah. If you've changed training sessions or intensity, then doing a 2 a.m. check at that point is also important to prevent those nighttime hypos. And also, if you have somebody around which you can train to do hypo checks and hypo treatments, then that would be helpful. Okay. Yet another tool which is freely available with NDR UK, and also if you come to the trust, we can hand these kind of printouts with to you as well, which helps you to identify trends, because your body speaks the best to you more than any guidelines. Trial and error, I think, gets us the best answers. Okay. So fueling performance on an overall, to have low GI foods, something like whole grains, fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, they improve your performance by having good storage of glycogen in your liver and muscles as well. Okay. So within 2 hours window, there is that 2 hour window, which is the golden window after exercise, that it's best if you are managing to get in some slow release carbohydrate and protein to improve that glycogen stores. And that helps in preventing your late onset hypoglycemia as well. Okay. Fluid requirements is another common question. I think the easiest is having a glass of water before exercise and 100 ml every 10 to 15 minutes. If you're working out more than 1 hour, then consider an isotonic drink. I think it's once you start drinking water regularly, at that point, your thirst kind mechanism kicks in as well, which helps to kind of drink according to your thirst. Because it tells you the best in terms of how hot it is and how much you sweat, and all those kind of factors come into play. Okay. I have this if in case somebody has questions, if you're working out more than 1 hour. But in summary, aerobic and anaerobic activities have different effects on blood glucose levels during exercise, and both of them can cause late onset hypoglycemia, but there are strategies in place which help you prevent. So having that, adjusting your bolus levels and adjusting your basal levels it's a useful strategy, and also having smart carbohydrates in place which help you to prevent that hypoglycemia overall. Okay, and monitoring is important, especially if you're making any changes to your routine as well, having that extra monitoring. Okay, I think I've tried to touch up. It is quite an extensive topic, but I was only given like 40 odd minutes, so I hope I didn't take more time.
Thank you very much, Komal. Not at all. That was very engaging and relevant. Let's now see if there are any questions from the floor. Abu. Just have to
Abu,
unmute
you're
yourself.
mute.
You're still on mute, Abu.
Mute yourself, Abu. No problem.
Yes, it's about testing 1 hour before, 30 minutes and 2 hours. Would the GP provide all those strips to do the test? Because they are limited. You get my point. If I go to my GP and say I'm doing so many exercises, I need all those, will they give it to me?
So I think if in case you are having multiple injections to give yourself and you have a risk of hypos, then they should be giving it to you.
Yeah, they will give you 4 per day or 5 per day. But if you're doing exercise, you could do about 6 in one session.
I mean, hopefully, if you explain to the GP the situation, because it's to give you an idea. Once you get used to, I suppose, what your body's doing going forward, you wouldn't have to do it all the time, but you're exploring. So if you've got a reasonable GP and you can have that discussion, then hopefully they would give it to you. I mean, if someone was under us and they said that and the GP was restricting it, then we could write to the GP and explain the situation and ask them if they can increase them, to accommodate for exercise.
I think it is cost saving to the GP if you exercise.
Yeah.
So they will definitely accommodate that. And if you're facing troubles, we're happy to write to them. Get in touch with us.
Okay, thank you. At least I know what to do next. Thank you.
Yes.
Lily.
Yes. You.
Hi. I like to do aqua aerobics. Now, I go high afterwards, and I really don't know how to manage that. If I do Pilates, I go hypo. I cut my basal back beforehand, but I can manage that. The problem is doing aqua. I can't keep reading my blood sugar readings when I'm in the water. But what happens is I give myself a bolus of insulin as soon as I come out of the water, and it still goes up, and it continues to go up over the next couple of hours. And I can never make arrangements I do this at lunchtime. I can't make any arrangements for the rest of the afternoon because I'm completely wiped out. And I wonder what is the point of doing the exercise, because I feel so awful.
Yeah. So do they have a lot of, strength training in the water? Because I know a lot of aqua aerobics tend to utilize, those sort of dumbbells and things like that in the water.
Yeah,
which-
we use dumbbells to start off with. It's 45 minutes to start off with. There's a lot of running and kicking, etc., in the water. And then, yes, using dumbbells. Although, yeah, using the dumbbells is slower exercise.
Okay. All right. Because the resistance exercise can sort of lead to that spike, because it looks like that is causing that sort of increase for yourself. If in case you were to do some free swimming, if you know swimming, after the workout as well, that will help bring it down, because you are kind of then alternating that resistance training with some cardio after. So that can be one reason. And sometimes when you're working out in a group, you might not realize in the enthusiasm, you might be doing more intensity than what you usually might be doing. So it might push your body into that anaerobic system, sort of, which is leading to that high reading. So getting a good cool down would be a good idea after that workout. Yeah. And if in case you're constantly noticing that trend, then how are your blood sugars when you start off? If you're running high already, then accommodating some insulin for that, or maybe ensuring that the meal before you're not reducing your insulin too much, because you are having that sort of workout.
Yeah, I'm not reducing my insulin beforehand in the way that I do when I do Pilates.
Yeah.
I keep it at the normal level, and I try to make sure that it's around about 7 or 8 when I start the exercise. But I'm worried about giving myself more insulin before I get in the pool, because I don't want to go hypo. And as I say, I can't read my blood sugars when I'm in the water in the same way that I would normally, because I have a CGM. Yeah.
I would suggest try out that cool down and a little bit of aerobic after, because I have a feeling there is more resistance exercise to it than you realize. Though it's called aquaerobics, there might be some resistance factors which are interplayed in that workout. Anything you want to add, Priti?
No, that's fine. I agree with what you're saying. You can try it, Hilary, and see how it works.
Yeah.
You can always, I mean, you can always contact us, because you know where we are. So if you find it hasn't worked, you can always
nice to see you, Priti.
And you. Yeah, so if you feel it hasn't worked or you've tried it, then contact us, and then we can always explore it with you again to see where we go.
No, I will try that. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Komal and Priti? Yes, Alex.
I'm not type 1 diabetic. And I've just been looking at the exercise that I do regularly. I'm not going to call it exercise. I'm going to be calling it activity. Normal things that you do every day. So I walk quite a bit. I've got a scooter, that you have to push along with your legs. That's exercise. That's a little bit more aerobic. I do yoga at home, from the internet. And sometimes I go swimming, more in the winter time than in the summer. So I do that regularly. I'm not overdoing anything. I'm kind of advocating a gentle form of activity rather than these bursts, which have to be managed more carefully. It looks so complicated, to have to balance out your insulin to your exercise to what you're eating. That's really, really difficult. So no wonder people are kind of put off from exercising, especially if they don't see the results, if they don't see the benefits of doing that, putting that effort in. So I'm just trying to sort of put a theory forward that, just do some more gentle work, and just take it, do a daily routine of some kind. Just say, I should walk, I won't get the bus. Gardening, I always think that's a health benefit as well. So it doesn't always have to be so scientifically managed. That's all I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you brought out a very beautiful concept, Alex. And what you are undermining as gentle, sometimes we see hypos even with that, with prolonged shopping, or, you know, using the scooter, or gardening, doing housework, doing DIY work. All these are reasons why we see some hypos in clinic. But you have learned to understand what your body needs around them, and you're listening to your body. And that's the same thing even if you're becoming a marathon runner. You're not going to become that overnight. You are going to listen to yourself and make gradual changes and observe what changes you need. And that's much simpler than what I presented. What we do in clinic is extremely simple. Let me look at what your trends are. What have you done? Let's adjust that. It's just those 3 things that you will hear from us, not all the scientific stuff that I presented. I was obviously asked to present, so I didn't want to demotivate you. I feel like I have pushed off that thought. So it's not, yes, your clinician has to think about all these aspects. And when a person reaches that level, and we do have some people who are a lot more experts in diabetes than us, because they come and they've managed it beautifully, and it's a learning experience to meet people like that. So I think we see different ranges, but you start slow and build it up, and don't let diabetes stop you. It is still manageable, and we are here to support you if in case you get stuck.
Message is be active. Don't sit about, you know, it's not going to help. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Yes.
So our question is, any advice for team sports such as rugby, where when the intensity and frequency and the cardio resistant changes each time, where Lauren's ended the game both very high and very low?
Absolutely. So I think the difficulty with team sports is nobody starts becoming an athlete overnight. So you have to observe what that game does to you so that you are a little more prepared. So getting those trends and speaking to your diabetes team, working closely with them to realize what profile you should be on, what your starting blood sugars should be, how much carbohydrate should you be having on board, what are the kind of snacks that you are able to tolerate, because you're not supposed to be throwing it up in between the sport. So those sort of things, getting your symptoms, how hypo-aware are you, all those things are individualized. So I'm unable to give one bracket answer. The answer would be speak to your team, get your profile assessed, and make sure you're doing the best you can.
Perfect, thank you.
Yes?
Peter.
Yes, Peter.
Oh, yeah, really just an observation, I guess. As I said, it's the first time I've kind of joined this this group, and I don't know whether Alex and I are in the minority. It's a very scientific presentation, and I'm sure you've used it in a number of different groups. So I would kind of slightly suggest sort of know your audience. I mean, a lot of that content, and I agree with what Alex said. I mean, just the mere thought of how many milligrams of water do I need to add after half an hour would just isn't the way I do my activity at all. So a lot of the type 1, I guess, content I didn't find relevant at all, but I'm aware that it's kind of a generic kind of presentation. And I guess a lot of it to me came across as common sense. It's a healthy diet, regular exercise or activity, but a lot of the sort of scientific, even some of the words I had to look up as you were going through it. So I think generally to sort of, I'm with Alex on this. I have a sensible approach to exercise and diet. I have an additional, not an issue, but being a vegan, I have to make sure I get the right sort of diet intake and everything else. But no, it's useful, but I do think a large chunk of it, and it's really just an observation to, I don't know whether it would help to know, not here and now, but in future groups, how many are type 1, type 2? Would that impact the content of your presentation? That's all. That's just an observation, but it was very interesting.
Thank you, Alex.
So let me maybe just chip in. So not that you need a defense, Komal and Priti, but that was our ask to actually you know take a more sort of academic take on the topic. Peter, we have, I think, in our communication also called out that this might be a little bit more relevant today to type 1s. But I think hopefully others found it sort of somewhat interesting as well. But thanks for your observation, Peter, very much. I think I see a hand from.
Yes, may I ask a question?
Oh,
can I ask a question?
Okay, Rose, you go ahead.
What happened is it's almost like a triangle. I can imagine. One side it will be the diet, the sugar input. The other side is the activities, and the bottom triangle will be the insulin or whatever, and balancing the three. Can I ask the group? Because I'm not a type 1 diabetic, I'm a type 2. Can I ask the group, how do you feel when you know that you are in the right zone, or when you're going hypo or hyper? Do you go hungry or what? Or do you feel faint when you're low? You know what I mean? We were talking about listening to your body. So you're all very experienced people. So how do you know you are balancing the three aspects without taking the blood test?
Do you want me to answer?
Yes, please, Hilary.
I mean, if you're going hypo, you feel shaky, weak, hot, flustered, weak. As you get older, those symptoms can decrease. If you are hyper, if your blood sugar's going high, you feel tired, lethargic, thirsty, generally yuck, can I say? If your blood sugars go very high, you can start feeling sick and be sick, and that's when ketones can kick in. Does that help, Rose?
What you just described, I'm perpetually in that zone. I'm always hungry, I'm always tired. But I do 10,000 steps a day. I do a lot of gardening. I'm always on the move. But I am not sure is that how the rest of you feel as well when you're hypo and high hyper? If you are, I'll take it on board.
Yeah, I'll add that I also feel upset when I'm hypo. I don't know how that works, but yeah, I feel upset and then shaky, faint. Yeah, it's just not a good feeling.
So do we need a blood test then? If you can feel it?
Yeah, you can. I don't know if it's the test strips or the CGM you have. Yeah, it will tell you when you're hypo, and then you can do the quick fix and then do the longer fix. Yeah.
I think sometimes it's when you're doing, you said you were very active and you do a lot of gardening. So those sort of things, though they are not structured exercise and they're gentle, sometimes we do notice people are unaware and they might go low. And that's exactly what I was telling Alex as well. So it don't undermine, some of those activities that we end up doing, and we don't call it a gym workout. So if in case you're feeling different, doesn't feel right, please check. Would be the answer. If you require extra strips, and if you feel that is a burden, and then you need to get in touch with your local team and your GP and ensure that you have those additional strips, because you are trying to take care of yourself. You are supporting the NHS by monitoring, and you are supporting, ensuring that you're not getting complications by getting your blood glucose under control. So that is very, very cost saving to the GP. It shouldn't be negating you for not providing you strips for that.
Okay, thank you.
I think we had a question from you, Florence. Yeah.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much. It was very, very useful for me. I do try to exercise, but I really like doing high intensity exercising. So I notice a lot, like every time I go to the gym, I have to go to have some insulin before, because it will always have peaks. And so actually what you explained today, it was very helpful for me, because I can understand why that is happening. So the way you explained, I was actually about to ask you if you could send the slides as well, so I can take notes of the names and everything. I want to know the names.
More than happy to. And in fact, I had disabled a lot of extensive high intensity slides, and I had disabled a lot of endurance athlete slides. So I'll keep them active if in case you are building up, and it shouldn't stop you from achieving what you can achieve. Diabetes shouldn't.
I like to be able to understand this was like very helpful, because now everyone was telling me, oh, you shouldn't be doing that, you shouldn't be doing that, and and I was like starting to look for, okay, I should be doing like yoga or that stuff, and I get bored, I don't like it, so I was trying to continue doing. But if I understand what is happening actually while I am exercising, I can have a better understanding of how I can help myself to manage it better. So yes,
I'll send the slides out to Marcin and he can distribute it. I'm more than happy to.
Yeah, that would be great.
Thank you very much. And also as a reminder, this will be also available as a recording, so you can actually relive tonight as well, Florence, if you
great.
wish to do so. Perfect. I know we're sort of running slightly late now. Probably a final question, if there is any such question. If not, then we'll move sort of to we're spoiled for speakers today. Thanks, Komal and Priti.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Marcin.
Not at all. And hopefully again sometime. We're now moving to Andrew McDonald. Andrew, I think you're here. I can see you there if you want to sort of show yourself and unmute yourself. So Andrew is talking about, firstly, Andrew, some of you will remember Andrew as a friend of our group, part of Health Watch. Sutton has been sort of part of our previous events as well, in person and online. And Andrew, you're talking to us today about another research project, I understand, that is run by Diabetes Collaborative. Over to you if you can hear.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you very much for having me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Andrew.
Yeah, unfortunately, my camera is not working, which is frustrating because it was working earlier today. But I'll press on.
Please do.
So, as you said, I work for Health Watch Sutton as a project officer, and my role is to find out about people's experiences of health and care services, to help services understand their users' needs. I previously worked with your group back in 2021, looking at community diabetes services in Carshalton. I'm here tonight because recently Health Watch Sutton were contacted by Peder Rooney, who is the programme manager for the Irish Health Research Board's Diabetes Collaborative Clinical Trial Network. This network is currently looking into the top 10 priorities and unanswered questions for adults with type 1 diabetes in the UK and Ireland. I'll pause there and share my screen, so at least there's something to go around. this is an advert for the survey. So as I said, the Diabetes Collaborative Clinical Trial Network are running the survey for type 1 diabetes, and you yourselves are welcome to, or even encouraged to complete it, and also share it with other people who you think would want to do the same. It's not just for people with type 1 diabetes, it's also for healthcare professionals and carers who, again, will have their own views on what are the biggest unanswered questions for type 1 diabetes. And the idea behind this survey is that by collecting all these different people's own opinions on the big issues for type 1, that will inform the research network's own priorities for looking into type 1 more. So if most people say the biggest question I have for type 1 is X, then the research network will probably focus on investigating X. The survey can be shared on social media and by email, and also in hard copy. I will share the details in a follow-up email, and I'll also put a link to the survey in the chat now. Anyone have any questions?
I don't think we do, Andrew. But yes, if you can sort of share the link as well, so we make it easier for people to access it, that would be wonderful.
There you go. And they haven't given a deadline for filling it in. I mean, another option would be I could share Pedder's details, and he could be contacted as a potential future speaker.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
And in terms of from your experience, the survey would take how much of our members' time?
5 minutes. Yeah, it's fairly straightforward, and it's quite open as well. It's not limited in how you can answer. It's more well, I mean, if you're someone with type 1, then it's from your own personal experience. What do you think needs looking into for the condition? Yeah. You know, if you're a carer, then it will be a similar thing, but obviously for the people that you are supporting. And then if you're a clinician, then it's probably a slightly broader, so based on kind of your experience of helping lots of people. But I think it's very much the case of the more people that complete it and the more insight that's gathered, then the more the network can have an idea of, well, we think that these are the main questions, but what do the wider population think, and making sure that the work they're then doing is kind of answering the issues that people actually, you know, want addressed.
Excellent. So we believe those 3 minutes that you have on your flyer.
Yes.
Perfect.
That's it.
Anything else for Andrew? That sounds like a no. Thank you very much, Andrew, and hopefully we'll have you with us. I know you're off on holiday, so enjoy whatever you do.
Yes.
And
thank you very much.
And the packing tonight. Look, that leaves me just by saying we just look ahead. As we mentioned at the beginning of tonight, the next time we'll see hopefully all, but certainly most of you will be on the 16th of September. That's our third annual summer meeting now after 21 and 22. It is the 16th of September, a lunchtime event as we have done over the last 2 years. Guests will include Dr. Nikki Smart, who's a clinical psychologist. She'll be talking about diabetes distress, and other speakers are yet to be confirmed. Finally, as always, before we close, if you sort of found today useful and you're not yet a member, please do get in touch. Use the same email that you used to register to get a membership form and become a member. I suppose, unless there are any final remarks or comments from the committee, I'll look to you, Helen, Lauren, Bolu. No. Please allow me to thank once more our our speakers tonight. It was great to have you with us, and hopefully again sometime with us again. I hope you have a lovely evening, a good weekend ahead, good summer, and until the 16th of September. All the very best. Bye-bye.